Whenever I teach at Harvard or in other developed country settings and bring up some issue related to developing countries, and I pose a question like, what do you think is the main issue that needs to be addressed for you students, you executives, you policymakers, you government officials, coming from the developed world, coming into a developing country? Item number one is corruption. How do we know that we will be treated fairly as outside investors, outside entrepreneurs, outside advocates, outside volunteer workers, what have you? It's followed closely by policy uncertainty and arbitrary behavior, but corruption is clearly item number one in many, if not most countries. Certainly for a country like India or other countries in South Asia, corruption would be very high up on the list. Let me customize that to the healthcare setting. It's very easy to see how corruption would be a problem in healthcare. I already mentioned some of this. You worry about somebody unethically adulterating the medicines so that the medicine that you get is mixed in with some fakes but appears in a package that's as good as that's used for the genuine meds. It could be that somebody is a so-called quack masquerading as a doctor when he or she has no legitimate degree, and on the wall will be a framed certificate saying so-and-so has a medical degree from so-and-so college. There are thousands of colleges in big populous countries, and so it's very hard to even know if that college exists. There is no mechanism for you to go and figure out whether that degree is genuine or not. You could chase it down, but you're not going to have the time or the energy to do it, particularly when you're sick. People could misrepresent the kind of treatment that they're about to give you. They could overcharge for it. There's no place to go to make sure they're not overcharging you. There's no well-developed insurance sector that's pushing back on the healthcare provider to say, these are the rates that we would pay. It's a complete free-for-all, and so on and so forth. Corruption is deeply insidious. I can't actually sit here with a straight face and say that any of us really know how to solve it. The one heartening thing, the one silver lining on this, I think, very dark cloud, particularly in relation to healthcare, is that there are so many very cool experiments that are underway in corruption in general, not specifically targeted to healthcare, but in corruption in general. And I think somewhere in this soup of effort is the answer for fixing corruption. It's not going to come from government saying, thou shalt not be corrupt, and so on and so forth. Very often government is the source of much of the corruption, or excessive regulations, or sometimes inadequate regulations are the source of corruption. People are using methods to increase greater transparency. A simple example would be using the phone to encourage people who feel they have been cheated to quickly type in a text message to someone saying, I think I was cheated at this place. And if you aggregate all those and crowdsource those complaints or pleas for attention, you might very easily quickly develop a heat map that may not be fully accurate. After all, someone may not have been cheated, even if he or she thought they were being cheated. But at least statistically, you would end up getting something that's roughly correlated with the incidence of people who feel aggrieved for various reasons, and that could be interesting information. So all you need for that is a cell phone and advertising that you should report something that you feel to this particular number. There are a couple of entrepreneurs in Bangalore at a company called Janagraha, which is initially a nonprofit dedicated to citizen empowerment that has been pioneering related methods of getting information from citizens so that people can see where the problems are. So that's a little cool, low-tech entrepreneurial effort to begin to combat corruption. And you could see that it could be advertised to patients saying, if you felt that the doctor mistreated you or treated you badly, report it to this number. Now, of course, there are lots of issues with this sort of reporting. If somebody has an axe to grind against a particular medical professional, they may excessively report it. But frankly, that's a problem here as well. You find medical professionals who are complained against by patients who feel they weren't treated rightly, and sometimes they're just complaining because they felt that they paid too much. So one has to take these efforts with a grain of salt. But I think the same mechanism could work in developing countries as well, as a way of filling the institutional void of policing corruption in some way.